Hey everyone, I'm Ebonie, aka Metal and Coffee, and this is Overkill Reviews, Banger's weekly metal review show. So, sludge and doom metal fans, come to the front, please. This one's not for the faint of heart. It's not for those who define heaviness by shredding in our speed. It's for those of us who want to be suffocated by distortion. For the ones who find joy in being slammed into a brick wall of bleeding atmosphere. This week, I'm reviewing the new album by Hell called Submersus. This album dropped July 11th on both Sentient Ruin and Lower Your Head, and this marks Hell's epic return after 8 long years. And if you know this project, you know that every release is just a crushing journey into darkness, and this one is no different. So, in case you don't know, Hell is the solo project of Matthew Scott Williams, also known as MSW, an artist who's been crafting the heaviest and most emotionally devastating music since 2009. He's made a name for himself in Salem's underground scene and earned this reputation for just overwhelming you with sonic and raw emotional power. So think sludge, drone, black metal, and funeral doom all married each other, and then they tortured each other. And then you have Hell. Influenced by bands like Corrupted, Moss, Burning Witch, and Sun, MSW uses Hell as a vehicle for personal catharsis, channeling grief and despair into massive, slow-crawling compositions. And from my understanding, MSW also self-records and runs his own label, Lower Your Head, which pretty much keeps the project rooted in the underground. And I gotta be honest, I don't know how I came across this project. I can't remember. All I know is that one day in 2017, I heard the self-titled record in all its seemingly Latin track names and knew that this was the kind of intensity that feeds my decaying soul. And with this new album, 5 tracks, 1 massive descent, and yes, it's as bleak as you'd expect it to be. So let's get into it. The atmosphere on Submersus is simply suffocating. MSW has this really unique gift for painting very oppressive feeling environments, and this record is no exception. From the opening moments on Heavy, the first track, you're dragged through a series of slow burning movements that kind of unfold like scenes in an artsy dark short film. Very cinematic, very disorienting, and the harsh vocals act as a simple contribution to the despair. It's storytelling through thick tone. And even through the aggressive atmosphere that is fostered all throughout this record, there's also a good amount of emotional and vulnerable moments. The 10-plus track, Gravis, that opening bass is so visceral. You can almost, you have no choice but to picture the vibration of the thick strings, and it feels so tangible. And then later in the song, it sheds the structure and drifts into this very meditative waterfall of vocal harmonies. Just wordless oohs and ahs that feel sacred, like a funeral chant almost, echoing through a cathedral. And the song never picks up again after that. Instead, it just fades into this very stark, naked guitar line that gently closes out the composition and leaves you in this moment of reflection. The shortest track, Factum, is the odd one out on this record, and it ditches percussion altogether. It kind of settles into a depressed guitar melody with haunting resonance. This one kind of surprised me because I got chills from this track, and it was giving a very pretty kind of pain. And then there's the track Mortem, which is Latin for death. And there's this switch up around the 3-minute mark that is just lives in my brain. It's where everything starts to sound hopeful and breathable. It is very strange to say hopeful in the context of hell, but here we are. It was just a moment in the track where I felt like the listener was being given space to reset before getting back to the darkness. And I feel like, especially with this song, someone should create a yoga class around this record, simply based off that. So again, Submersus is 5 tracks and nearly 45 minutes long, and I'd say it feels more like an extended piece of performance art than a traditional record. Heavy Alone is nearly 10 minutes. The song really doesn't offer that much dynamic payoff, but also that's not what we're here for. It's not really about building anything, it's about enduring the waves that you're constantly being put through in this in this track, and honestly in all the tracks. But at the same time, it can be quite alienating for a new listener, for sure. For me personally, this is not a record that I put on randomly. I have to be mentally prepared for it. And that's something that can be seen as a flaw, but it doesn't really compute for me. But don't get me wrong though, you can pick out some lyrics here and there. For instance, in Gravis, MSW delivers the lyric, "It's getting harder to breathe," in the most gravelly way, which is, yeah, I mean, it's on brand. That's all I can say. Anyways, the overall experimental, almost free-form aspect of Hell is an acquired taste, and it isn't for everyone. So to wrap this up, the new record by Hell isn't something you just listen to, it's more so something you sink yourself into. It's moody, bleak, slow, and completely unyielding. It's atmospheric doom that crushes you and just leaves no pieces. In comparison to the previous records, it's honestly more of the same, which is not a bad thing. Hell has its unique, perfectly constructed stain in the sludge doom metal genre, and when you put on a Hell track, there's no way you won't know that it's Hell. This won't be for everyone. There's no catchy hooks or speedy solos. But if you're someone who finds beauty in sorrow and in raw emotion, this album will hit you in the best way. So with that said, I'm going to give this record a 3 out of 5 skulls. Alright, so let's get to shoutouts. The first one goes to the new record from Death Rattle called The Moral Chokehold. Looking for your next Lamb of God fix? Well, Death Rattle might actually suffice. It's very clean and the riffs are very tight, aggressive energy, and zero filler. Give it a try. The next shout out goes to Italy Stygian and their new album Dreadlands. I'm sorry if I mispronounced the band name, but it's so crusty, it's blistering, it's so epic. It fuses crust punk fury with blackened extremity, and they make it sound so effortless. So you really can't go wrong here. That's it for this review. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Until then, see you later, metalheads.